Welcome back, everyone. It's here. And today I've got some r/BestOf for you all. As per usual, I'll be reading you the posts, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Wait. Before we start, does this interest you? This distinguished gentleman is now live on Makeshift.com for a grand total of $30. Link in the description below. Make sure you snag one before the time expires because it's not coming back. By the possums, 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 by the possums. Now to your regularly scheduled program. This post was collected by Starry Gecko, and their tagline is, "A disconcerting amount of you believe Tide is a real chicken." The original OP is Man Bear Pig Cereal, posted April 25th, 2025 to r/Am I the Asshole? Am I the asshole for not giving legal advice at a party to someone I just met? Hi everyone, this actually happened last night. I was at my brother's place for an NFL draft party. I haven't seen my brother in a couple weeks, and my brother and I live a couple hours from each other because I moved away, so I haven't seen a lot of his friends in years. I also have not met most of my brother's girlfriend's family and friends because she comes from a town a couple of hours from where they currently live, in the opposite direction from where I live. My brother and his girlfriend have been together 2 years, and are getting engaged next month. At the party, I was talking with a group of people, and one guy, the husband of one of my brother's girlfriend's friends, asked me what I do for a living, and I said I'm an attorney. He then asked me what kind of law I practice, and I could already see where this was going. He then started into "So I'm having a problem with one of my neighbors." As he was launching into his story, I reached in my pocket and gave him my card and told him to call me in the morning to discuss the issue. He got upset and said, "Why can't I just answer a couple of quick questions for him since we're both there?" I said I was there to see my brother and watch the draft and didn't want to discuss business right now. As other attorneys will tell you at social gatherings, this is a common thing. Once people find out you're an attorney, they'll try to corner you with a bunch of questions and you're basically back on the clock. Years ago, I decided to do the business card thing instead of answering questions so I could actually enjoy social gatherings. Besides, these things almost never turn into actual business. People just want free legal advice. I've never had any complaints about it before. Well, until the guy got upset, said something under his breath, and stormed off. The other people standing there all made a face as he stormed off, and we went right back into our conversation. That was it. Or, so I thought. The rest of the night was fine, and it was never brought up again. We enjoyed the draft, and I enjoyed seeing my brother's knucklehead friends these years later. I got a text from my brother this morning, and he said, "I want to make this clear, I completely understand why you did what you did." He has seen it happen a bunch of times at events and heard me complain about it afterwards. However, his girlfriend is upset that I blew her friend's husband off, and wants me to reach out to him, apologize, and answer his questions. My brother said he's on my side and said he told her such. But she made him send the text to me anyway. I believe my brother being on my side and understand he's trying to keep the peace in his relationship. I said I'm not texting and apologizing or calling the guy, but he has my card and is welcome to call me. I feel I did nothing wrong. Just because of my job doesn't mean I'm on the clock 24/7. My brother said, "Yeah, I knew you'd say that, but now I can at least tell my girlfriend I tried and that was it with him." Again, I thought this was the end, but it's not. His girlfriend texted my mom and told her what happened. Now my mom is texting me and saying, "I know it's annoying what this guy did, but can you call this guy so that your relationship with your brother's girlfriend isn't negatively affected because she's obviously upset with you?" My brother is getting engaged to her next month and she's going to be family, so there's no need to have a rift when she's about to be family. I said it's too late. The fact that she cried to my mom already created a rift on my end about her now. Again, I declined. And my mom said she understands, but just doesn't want negative feelings with brother's girlfriend over this. I said no. He can call me, and I'll answer any questions he has. So Reddit, am I the asshole for how I handled this? I'm just gonna butt in. This is a massive red flag on the girlfriend's part, expecting someone that didn't want to do work at a party to do work and said, "Hey, give me a call after the party. Here's my card. I don't want to talk about this now." And now you're required to, and now you have to apologize for not wanting to do work at a party, and now additionally, she's calling your fucking mom to make you apologize. Is this high school? Those true colors are starting to shine, buddy, and Oh boy. Relevant comments. Not the asshole. I'm an attorney and constantly experience the exact same thing. By the way, don't know if you've tried it, but I found my malpractice insurance doesn't allow me to talk to you about this unless you come in for a consult, which I have to charge for. To be pretty helpful. Opie responds, thanks for the tip. I may try this one in the future. Another comment. I think the girlfriend knew about this guy's problem and she advised him to ask OP. When OP refused, she got upset. OP responds, didn't think of this. Definite possibility. Another comment. If I were your brother, this would be a wake-up call for me. She isn't above looping in whomever she wants, their business or not, to get her way. I can't even imagine what any marital arguments will get spread around until he feels publicly shamed into submission. Also, what happens when/if they have children and disagree on something? She's going to send a group of flying monkeys after him. I would also tell your mom, today it's me, tomorrow it could be you. What happens when you don't do something she wants when it comes to the wedding? You're asking me to cave to keep the peace, and it will let her know that if she throws a big enough tantrum, we'll buckle. OP responds, I love my brother to death, but I doubt they have many serious arguments. He's a complete pushover. He probably gives into her pretty quickly if she raises enough of a stink. Yeah, but that's the problem. Comment. Our profession isn't exactly full of nice people. Editor's note, this comment is also a lawyer. It's unfortunate, but you are right. I tend to be pretty accommodating of other counsel unless they are unaccommodating with me. Need an extension on a filing date? Sure. How long do you need? Want to adjourn a hearing date? Sure. Let's pick one that works better for both of us. We represent our clients to the best of our abilities, but that doesn't mean we can't have decorum. More on how OP feels about this. To be honest, I could care less if this guy who lives 4 to 5 hours away that I may never see again except once at their wedding and then never again is mad. I only care about my brother's girlfriend and only to the extent that she's probably giving my brother an earful over it, and that sucks for him, and her being a future part of the family having a rift over something so stupid is unfortunate. Am I the asshole has no consensus bot, but OP was voted not the asshole based on the comments. Update. July 2nd, 2025, 2 months later. I have some small updates on this post I made a couple months ago. My brother got engaged to the girlfriend referenced in the post a couple of weeks ago. They had a get-together to celebrate their engagement this past weekend. They only invited immediate family and those they expect to be in their wedding party. My brother had asked me about being his best man last week before the party. But at the dinner, they formally gave gifts to everyone in their wedding party, along with officially asking everyone to be in the wedding party. Said brother's fiance's friend's husband was there as well. He's not going to be in the wedding party, but his wife apparently will be. I was there before he was, and when he came in, he made no attempt to come over and say hello to me or the group I was talking with. Fine. I hardly know the guy, so I don't care if he talks to me. At dinner, there were no assigned seats, but my girlfriend and I happened to be seated not super close to him and his wife, but close enough to where we could hear each other's conversations if we weren't involved in our own conversations. At dinner, I was sitting with my girlfriend next to me on the same side they were seated. On my other side was my sister and her husband, and across from me was some other friends of my brother's fiance I had never met before this night. My girlfriend was not at the previous event, but I of course had told her about the issue. Anyway, my girlfriend and I were making small talk with the friends of my brother's fiance across from us, and of course, what we all do for a living came up. I said I was an attorney, and the guy at that point decided to interject into our conversation and say, "But don't ask him any questions right now. He'll just give you his card and tell you to call him during business hours." To my delight and his horror, one of the friends we were talking to responded and said, "Yeah, of course. I'd hardly expect him to give me legal advice at his brother's engagement party." He made an angry face, mumbled something to his wife, who told him to drop it, and then I don't think he said a word again the rest of the night. Nothing big, just thought some might find this update amusing. Relevant comments. As a fellow attorney, I applaud you. That guy is so self-absorbed and entitled. I fucking hate people who expect free off-the-cuff advice and have no understanding of the fact that actually lawyers need to do legal research in order to give good advice. Not to mention that we need to do conflict checks. How did your future sister-in-law treat you? I hope she got over her snit. Not cool that she called your mom to tattle on you. Sounds like your bro is marrying a jerk. Obi responds, "Thank you. It is great to hear a fellow attorney thinks I handled it well. She got over it pretty quickly, didn't apologize, but didn't change the way she acted with me either. Her and I aren't close, and I don't think we ever will be, but we've remained cordial. Another comment. Not the asshole at all. You obviously handled that well. I do have a question regarding the social expectations of asking questions because I'd still love to pick your brain regarding law school. Which year was the hardest for you? Is tort really hard to understand? Shit like that. Would you be cool with being asked stuff like that, or would you still prefer not to be bothered with that kind of question? Opie responds, if you, as a random Redditor, want to ask me questions here or in a DM, I'd answer them at my convenience. I have no issues with that. As far as in public goes, it depends on the social situation. If I'm being introduced to someone in a planned situation because they are considering law school or in law school and have questions about law school, I'll of course answer. If I'm with a group of my attorney friends, it also helps my willingness to answer said questions because we'll likely start sharing law school horror stories. If I'm at an event, it depends on the situation. If I've been drinking, I'm not going to want to talk about it. If I'm at an event where I have something else I want to do, be it watch the NFL draft like the first situation, a wedding, etc., I'm also going to probably shut you down and say let's talk later. However, questions about law school I'd be more receptive to in casual conversations and asking me legal advice because they don't require as much thought on my end. I'm more likely to answer those than questions about someone's legal problems as long as I'm not busy at the time with something else. Another commenter. Oh gosh, I feel so bad now. I get super awkward talking to my husband's cousin who's a lawyer and just ask him lawyer stuff every time I see him, just as something to talk about. I'll make a better effort at finding different common ground with him. A plus side to your event is opening my eyes to do better. Thank you. OP responds, I'm sorry if I made you feel awkward. Everyone is obviously different, but I don't mind if someone asks me how my work is going, if I have any interesting cases, etc., compared to being asked for advice. Advice makes me start having to go into the Rolodex of what I know and advise as to what someone should do. Asking me how work is going or if I have interesting cases, I think is a normal conversation thing to ask anyone about their job. But asking them to do their job on the spot to me is where a line is drawn. I do still have some concerns about OP's brother's relationship and how she acts sometimes, and just the whole thing of going to the mom to tattletale still really just rubs me the wrong way, and I worry for his future marriage. But that guy was a cheeseball, dude. Like, he was eavesdropping into their conversation, heard them mention the whole attorney thing, decided to butt in and interrupt and be like, just don't expect them to give you legal advice right now. Like, buddy, make it any less obvious that you're still bent up about it. Also, in addition, like, lawyers charge a shit ton of money per hour, and you're just expecting him to give free advice at a party? I'm not sure what it is about the whole thing of like, oh, like my brother's friend's girlfriend thinks that like just because I do something, I'll do it for them for free because of our weird 6 degrees of separation of knowing each other. This actually happened to my dad a few years ago at like a social gathering. It happened a few times actually. In one instance, he brought up the fact that he was a structural engineer and they wanted them to look over a potential remodel and house extension they wanted to do to their home, and expected my dad to do it for free because they knew him. For 5 minutes. Additionally, my dad is the type of dad that doesn't believe in hiring people to do something. So because he's a structural engineer and came from construction, everything from concrete to framing to stucco to whatever he can get his hands on he'll do himself, including, as he mentioned once in a party, doing the garage floor epoxy himself. It actually turned out really well, and 7-year-old me was a dumbass and saw the material for that and thought that the garage floor was replaced with rubber, so I thought it'd be like a trampoline. So guess what 7-year-old decided to full throttle right into the concrete and just jump on it like a trampoline, only to learn very quickly that no, it's just kind of painted concrete. Yeah, that shit hurt. But anyways, he mentioned that he did the epoxy at a Christmas party, and because he mentioned it, the person he was talking to thought that that meant he was offering to do it to their garage for free. To put it in perspective, which this is also the reason my dad did it himself, to epoxy a standard 2-car garage professionally can cost anywhere from like $1,500 to $8,000 depending on the grade of epoxy. This post was collected by Choice Evidence 1983, and their tagline is, of course, it dawned on me that he was a wizard. The original OP is Throw RA Job Seeker, posted to r/relationship advice, April 15th, 2020. The hiring manager, 30s female, where I, 30s female, am interviewing is someone I fired last year. I hired a girl over the summer. She didn't make it through her probationary period. She came highly recommended by her references. She was a fast learner, had worked through a merger, and helped it go through seamlessly. I thought she was terrible at her job with my company and fired her on her 89th day. On her exit interview, she stated that she felt she had been poorly trained and that my temper made her worried about asking for future training, stating that I blew up on her when she asked for clarification on something a few weeks in. She then packed her things and left without so much as another word. I found out through a mutual friend the day she was fired, she was offered her job back with a $3 an hour raise and added responsibilities despite having quit just days into her 2-week notice. Well, my boss had to lay us all off because of recent events. When I called and got an interview, the woman who spoke to me said that the hiring manager/trainer would be seeing me in the office despite it being closed and everyone working remotely. I was given her name and I instantly felt sick because it was her. I didn't realize the company had changed their name since I had seen her resume. Should I even go to the interview? I admit I do have a pretty bad temper that she had witnessed within days of being hired, but I was great at my job. I know her company is desperately hiring workers to meet demand, and I need the job. Too long didn't read. Girl wasn't a good fit for my job. I fired her. She's now interviewing me for a job, and I'm afraid there's nothing I can do to salvage it. Should I even try? Top comments. Commenter 1. There's also some useful commentary where this was shared on Twitter. Relationship advice. One of the biggest things is that a person on their probationary period needs support, which you gave the opposite of, showing your temper, and feedback to improve. And it sounds like all you gave was criticism, waiting purposely until the last possible day to fire with no consequences, and then blaming her for leaving a couple days into her 2 weeks' notice after you fired her? Like, Jesus fucking Christ, you live in a fantasy world. The fact that she was immediately rehired with a raise while you're unemployed gives you no place to have the gall to say she was a bad fit. She outlasted you. The company invested more money in her not to lose her because she's exactly what they want and need, and you're still blaming your bad training on her fit. Go to the job interview. It will go one of 4 ways. 1. Good end. You've reflected on how bad you were and resolved to be better, and she has more integrity than you and gives you a chance to prove your change. 2. The petty end. How you do in the job interview barely matters. You're capable enough to be hired. But the plan is to accumulate evidence for a justifiable, or not because who cares, firing on your 89th day. 3. Bad end. You never had a shot at hiring for any number of reasons. Maybe mishandling the interview, maybe your temper, maybe your inability to tell the difference between a good and bad job. Catastrophic bad end. She's willing to give you a fair shot that you barely gave to her. But you insist on your bullshit of talking down to her, calling your peer a girl, acting like temper is justifiable in a workplace, and generally make your toxicity other people's problems because you haven't grown up. Opie responds, she's not with my company, but her previous employer. My company went under due to COVID. Commenter 2. Maybe this experience will teach you how to treat people in positions below you. You never know when those people might one day be above you, and you'll regret having behaved so awfully. Commenter 3. You blew up at someone at work and didn't sincerely apologize for your actions. This is karma. Update. April 17th, 2020. 2 days later. I got a lot of good feedback and you guys are right. I did let my temper get the best of me in front of her on multiple occasions and that makes me a bad boss. I went to her office, unsure of what to expect. The door was locked when I got there, so I stood outside waiting. She came up behind me and said my name. She asked me if I was ready to interview, and I just said yes. We sat down in her office and she pulled out her phone and started recording. She asked me if I minded being taped, and I said no. She asked me basic interview questions, and then she asked me if there was anything that I knew I had to work on. I told her that my temper was an issue in the past, but that I have had a sudden wake-up call about my temper, and that I was actively working on it. I apologized for leaving her hanging with training, and that I was glad to see she was in a better position. She told me that one of the things she had learned was forgiveness. She had left the company she was at and rehired to because they had wronged her during the merger. When she was offered the position back, it was with an apology, a raise, and now she was in a better position than when she left. She said sometimes an apology can start you down the path towards something better. She told me that she's willing to hire me for a good wage because she knew I was good at a lot of things at my previous job. She said if I lost my temper during the trial period, it would be the end, but she was hopeful that it wouldn't happen. She asked me if I could start Friday. She started training me today, and I definitely realized I was the problem and why she didn't succeed where I was. She is absolutely wonderful at the job with great client interactions. She should have been able to easily pick up the work I was throwing at her if she had been properly trained. I'm glad that she gave the company a second chance because she deserves everything they have given her. I hope to learn a lot from her and show her that she didn't waste her time on me. I've also signed up for therapy to manage my anger online. Too long didn't read, I ate my humble pie and went to the interview. She's giving me a second chance and I hope to be a good employee. I'm starting anger management soon. Top comments. Commenter 1. Now this is wholesome. I hope you do actually go to anger management classes, OP. Best of luck to you. Commenter 2. It takes a lot to swallow your pride and admit you were wrong. Well done, OP. Commenter 3. I'm glad that this worked out for you. I'm glad that you went through with it. And I'm glad that she took you. You're very lucky. I wish you the best. I probably would not have gone through with it. This is a great example of that saying where it's basically, be careful of who you step on your way climbing up the ladder, because if you fall, you never know who you'll be passing on the way down. OP was lucky that one of the rungs she stepped on was forgiving and was willing to grab her hand and help her back up. It's not always the case, and hopefully she takes this lesson to heart and actually decides to climb the ladder more carefully, and to be mindful. I also get the impression that while OP is good at her job, she may not be the best manager. A good manager is someone who leads rather than commands, and it sounds like that OP was put into a position where they weren't quite comfortable or properly trained or didn't have the availability to properly be that emotionally neutral manager and was instead commanding through their temper rather than leading their team. Hopefully with time they can learn and grow from this, and it sounds like that's what they're going to be doing. This post was collected by Glumcraft4652. The original OP is NYC Trip Mom Throwaway, posted in r/Am I the Asshole, July 14th, 2020. Am I the asshole for not allowing my daughter to go on an 8th grade school trip? This happened 3 years ago, and my daughter, Mallory, still resents us for this. I'm asking now because my son is going to be starting the 8th grade next school year, permitting that schools will reopen again and this event isn't canceled. At my kid's school, there's a big annual spring break trip to New York City and Washington, D.C. It's something that most of the kids, including my own, were looking forward to. When Mallory started the 6th grade, she talked about wanting to go on the trip. We said she could, as long as she got good grades and didn't get into trouble. When she was in the 7th grade, her Aunt Linda got engaged and set her wedding date for the following year. This was going to include a big family reunion with all the relatives because Linda was the last of my siblings to get married. Big fat Catholic family, many of whom we haven't seen in years. Unfortunately, Linda planned her wedding to take place the same week as Mallory's 8th grade spring break. We ended up having to tell Mallory that she couldn't go on the trip after all because everyone was going to be going to the wedding instead. Like I said, this was going to include a family reunion, and it may be for the last time we get to see some relatives, including her great-grandparents, for a long time. Mallory was heartbroken. We offered to take a family trip to New York, but she turned it down because she wanted to go with friends and not family. Understandable. Cut to the week of the wedding a year later. We flew out to New Mexico for the ceremony and crashed at my sister's, not the bride's, house. Mallory is still upset about having to be in New Mexico when all her friends are in New York. A few days before the ceremony was to take place, Linda called off the wedding. Mallory was furious. I can still remember her blowing up. She screamed, "So I missed my trip for nothing?" and stormed off into the room she was sharing with her cousins and wouldn't let anyone in. It was a mess afterward. I tried to cheer Mallory up by offering to take her sightseeing or go see a movie with her cousins, but she refused. I gave up after she refused to go to the movies with us, saying that she didn't want to watch a dumb kids movie with a bunch of babies. While she is the oldest of the cousins, the next nearest cousin in age was 9 at the time. Mallory refused to speak to us during the flight back. To this day, she's still angry at her Aunt Linda. I know Mallory was upset, but no one could have predicted that the wedding would be called off. We have tried to make it up to her, but she has refused every offer. I know she wants a trip with her friends, but That New York trip is expensive, and many of her friends' parents were not willing to spend more money on another outing for the girls. Because of this, Mallory thinks I'm an asshole. Am I? Judgment. Asshole. Top and relevant comments. Glumcraft added a note that they're more focused on comments that OP responded to. Gregarious Kenku, heavily downvoted. Not the asshole, but your daughter is. OP responds, heavily downvoted. Well, this was a trip she was looking forward to since starting middle school. OP replied to a deleted comment, heavily downvoted. We didn't know ahead of time. Linda just suddenly announced 2 days before the wedding. Had I known it was going to happen, maybe I would have let Mallory go on the trip instead. At the same time, we live in a different part of the country, and the kids rarely see their grandparents and other extended family. I want them to spend time with them when they can. Deleted user, heavily downvoted. No assholes here, since I don't know why the wedding was called off. She's a teenager, this would have been a very bitter moment, but she will let it go. Since it's been a few years, maybe another trip could be organized with her friends. OP responds, heavily downvoted. Linda's fiancé was cheating on her. I feel like the only way to fix this would be to put together a girls' trip for Mallory and her friends. I don't know when that will happen due to current events. My husband suggested we let her go on a trip for spring break in high school. She's in a club that does overseas trips. But I'm not comfortable with her traveling overseas. User Peculiar Owl comments, unless you want this resentment to drag on, you really need to find a way to get comfortable with it. High school overseas trips happen all the time and the students are well protected. Being overprotective is going to make an already unfortunate situation even worse. You owe it to her at this point. OP, heavily downvoted. I don't know if it'll happen now. I remember going over the prices with my husband and it costs twice as much for the high school overseas trip than the New York one. It wasn't something we could afford at the time. User Aspie17 comments, you're the asshole. Kids that age don't have a lot of interest in family events like weddings. The trip she missed was a once-in-a-lifetime coming-of-age event. There is no making up for that. Would anyone have really missed her at the wedding? She wasn't the bride or any other integral part of the wedding. OP responds, heavily downvoted. Her cousins for one thing. Her grandparents and her great-grandmother. My mother also wanted to take a giant group photo of the relatives to commemorate everyone coming together for the first time in a decade. Aspie17 responds, would her absence have ruined the wedding had it actually taken place? OP, heavily downvoted, yes, because then everyone would be asking where Mallory is. Family is very important for my culture, and the excuse of a school trip wouldn't work well with my older relatives. Family is very important for your culture, yet it's been a decade? Okay. User Ms. Ellie comments, you said her next oldest cousin was 9. If this is a grade 8 trip, then Mallory would have been what, 13 or 14? At that age? That's a huge gap. I doubt they would have cared much in the long run. Think about what you said. You sacrificed letting your daughter go on a once-in-a-lifetime coming-of-age trip that she had looked forward to for a long time, so your mother could take a photo. You're the asshole. OP responds, heavily downvoted again. It wasn't just that, it was an opportunity for us to come together. Mallory hadn't even seen many of her relatives before. It was more of a big deal because her great-grandparents were attending, and it would likely be the last time we saw them. And it was. Her great-grandfather passed away a few months later. Peculiar Owl, commenting in their own thread, you're the asshole. It doesn't even sound like you were all close with the people that were getting married. Couldn't she have gone on the trip and you got to New Mexico? She missed out on a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Of course she's going to be resentful about it. OP responds, heavily downvoted. The bride was my baby sister. I love her to bits. I was like a second mother to her growing up. Peculiar Owl responds, okay, so she is important to you. How often had your kid seen her in her lifetime? OP responds, heavily downvoted. Once, when she was a baby. I wanted Mallory to meet her aunt and actually have a memory of it. I guess it was a bad memory. Mallory is still angry at Linda. User Misty Day for President comments, you're the asshole. That's so unfair. Look, my father sent my little sister to Paris an actually Europe trip when she was in special classes in the 8th grade. And my dad barely chipped in for the regular field trips for us older kids. It creates real resentment between the siblings and it's just really a jerk move. You should chaperone and take her on the trip when your other child goes because she missed out on something that is a big deal in your town. Treat your kids equally or don't have them. Weddings aren't that important for children to attend. OP responds, and surprise, surprise, heavily downvoted. We offered that and she turned that down. She didn't want to be stuck with me or a brother or a brother's friends. Now, nearly 3 years later, an Am I the Asshole post was posted that includes a comment from OP. That post goes as follows, posted by Putting Foot Down with Brad. Am I the asshole for demanding my husband allow our daughter to go on a graduation trip and prioritize her friends over visiting his family and paying for the trip against his wishes? Background info, my husband is named Brad, Valerie is our daughter who is in 8th grade, and Denise is Brad's sister. Main story. Valerie's school hosts a New York trip for graduating 8th grade. It's in late June, but the deadline to register for the trip and pay the fee is in 2 weeks. The problem is the date conflicts with the out-of-state trip we take every 2 years to visit Denise and Brad's parents. Brad's argument is that Valerie's at an age where the friendships she has now will most likely fade by the time she's an adult, and Denise and her grandparents are family, so she's going to regret it and realize what he's insisting on now is the right choice. The thing is that Valerie isn't particularly close with Denise or her grandparents on Brad's side, and she's told me that she doesn't want to visit her family on Brad's side if it means missing her graduation trip this year, and it won't be the same as if she went to New York as an adult. I argued my side with Brad, and that Valerie will simply resent the trip to Brad's family if it means missing her graduation trip, as well as that we're all in good health, and can reasonably expect that everyone will still be here when we visit again in 2 years. Brad is insisting that Valerie will realize when she's older that spending time with her family is the right choice and will be thankful for it when she's an adult. Me and Brad are still on opposing sides, and I have told him that I am going to sign off on Valerie's graduation trip and pay the fee out of my own savings, regardless of what he says. Am I in the wrong for putting my foot down and making sure our daughter gets to go on this trip against Brad's wishes? Valerie has already missed so many experiences and didn't even get a 5th grade graduation because of COVID. She's worked so hard this year to improve her grades to be allowed on this trip, and I feel we need to make up for those lost events as much as possible. This OP was of course voted not the asshole. And one of those not the asshole votes was from NYC Trip Mom Throwaway, the author of the main staple post of this best of. You're not the asshole. Take it from someone who made this mistake with her own daughter 7 years ago. I made my daughter miss her 8th grade trip so that we could attend a family reunion/wedding that would go on to be canceled. Mallory resented me for years afterward. She always brought up how much she hated the trip we took her on, and how much she felt left out of a bonding experience her friends shared. She was never close with my side of the family, the one we were visiting, and doesn't want to have anything to do with them now. She found ways to exclude me from other milestones to make me feel how she felt. She didn't want me there when she picked her prom dress and took her dad with her when they got the pictures taken. Even now, our relationship is distant. Her father and I got a divorce years ago. Mallory chose to spend her senior year at her dad's and has made no effort to reach out to me since she went on to college. Show your husband this post and tell him this is his future if he makes his daughter visit his family. My daughter hates me and won't have anything to do with me anymore. I might be a bit off basis with this one here, but I don't think it was just the school trip. I think that was definitely a contributing factor. I think it would definitely suck to have your trip canceled for a family event, then have the family event canceled, and then find out a little bit later your younger brother is going to be able to go on the trip that you were desperately wanting to go for. Yeah, that would definitely suck, but I get the vibe here there might be more to this. Especially with the distaste for Mallory's parents being so one-sided and her having a positive relationship with her father while a negative one with her mother. It's just an itch that I have, just a mental one that's gotta be scratched. I'm almost wondering if maybe the younger brother's the golden child and it led to Mallory being passed up on a lot of things while the younger brother was 100% getting them, no matter what. Hell, this is kind of borderline potentially a missing reasons, but it could very well just be that Mallory is really upset about the school trip all these years later. I mean, hell, some people do hold grudges, but I don't know. It's the fact that there is a younger brother who is potentially going to be allowed to go on this trip, and the one restriction is whether or not COVID is going to be canceling that. It just makes me wonder if maybe there's some sibling favoritism going on here beyond just the school field trip. That's certainly more of a tinfoil hat theory, though. Don't forget, today we're launching the 3 opossums in a trench coat plush. coming live and fucking, yeah. But you should definitely buy this plush. It is totally not 3 opossums in a trench coat. Totally not. You should definitely allow this completely non-conspicuous, oddly shaped, distinguished gentleman into your home, who will certainly not lay claim to your pantry. This is in fact 3 opossums in a trench coat who will in fact lay complete desolation to your fridge, pantry, and potentially garbage. On sale now!